China Eastern Airlines, known as one of China's big four, is launching what it calls the world's longest direct flight. Taking off from Shanghai's Pudong International Airport, the plane will take 25 and a half hours to arrive at its destination in Ministro Pistarini International Airport in Buenos Aires. And the return leg from Argentina will take 29 hours. But there's a catch. The flight will make a 2-hour stop in Auckland, New Zealand. Now, to help us understand how air travel is changing and what that means for airport hubs and their competitiveness, we are joined by Professor Jin-ru from the Department of Shipping and Transportation Management at National Taiwan Ocean University in Geelong, and Adjunct Professor Guy Lohmann from the Griffith Institute for Tourism at Griffith University in Brisbane, Australia. Now, I just want to get, firstly, both your thoughts on this extra long flight. Can you tell us, Professor Yen, what do you make of this so-called longest flight?
Okay, I think it depends on the flight time, not the flight distance. If the technology does not change a lot, it's like the current flight time, 80 hours from China to Argentina. And I will think that the long distance, this kind of long distance flight will exist, but not popular. Why? Because the long distance flight need to deal with the fatigue of the pilot and the crew members on the cabin. That's one issue. And the other issue is that the passenger maybe cannot endure a lot of fatigue because every one of us have the so-called body cycle. So I think that's the main issue this kind of so-called long distance flight need to face.
All right, Guy, if technology can help planes sustain much longer flights, what do you think that's going to be the trend? And also, what do you make of the fact that it's called the world's longest flight, but it does have a 2-hour stopover?
It's there's a technicality there. You know, for example, if I want to fly between Brisbane and Buenos Aires, I need to catch 2 planes, and I will be stopping, for example, in the Middle East, and it's going to take about 28 hours. So it's 2 flights of 14 hours each plus the transit over there. It's a technicality because it's these 2 flights actually, these 2 legs have the same flight number. So in many ways, it's not really the longest flight because as you mentioned, the aircraft is not in the air during this time. So nevertheless, what is interesting about this, that what they're trying to do is to take advantage of a market that has been neglected since the pandemic. We used to have direct flights between New Zealand and Argentina, either operated by Aerolíneas Argentina or by Air New Zealand. And for many reasons, this is an untapped market at the moment, and China Eastern has been quite smart in claiming that spot. In reality, this route has 3 markets: is the China-New Zealand market, is the China-Argentina market, it is also the New Zealand-Argentina situation. There's a lot of other airlines like Qantas with the Sunrise project that is allowing longer and longer flights with the availability of new aircraft. For example, from Perth, Australia, you can fly directly to London in the UK, Paris in France, or Rome in Italy. Now, it's a very good question that you pose, is that will people be prepared to fly for 20 plus hours in the traditional economy class seat? To be seen.
All right. So, Jin-ru, given that perhaps maybe more flights will be making longer trips, but I guess you do need a stopover because you said that, you know, the human body also has to be taken into account. In that case, given that Taiwan is trying to expand its airport facilities, can Taiwan be a stopover for airlines? Is that how Taiwan is positioning itself? Will this new terminal make Taiwan a possible stopover economy?
Yeah, I think the answer is yes, because for now, we have a very good connection between Southeastern Asia and North America. Our two Taiwanese airlines like China Airlines and EVA Airways, they use their own connection, bring a lot of passengers transfer from Southeastern Asia to North America through TPE, Taoyuan International Airport. The statistics show that more than 60% passenger they took from TPE to North America is transferred. So that's for now. I think it's okay. It's good. And in the future, if we need to further improve our state position as a global hub, we need to include more direct connection to Europe, because we have some direct connection, but not the number is not big enough. And the second, we need to increase more direct connection to South Asia, especially India. For now, it's just few. Very, very. The number is maybe one or two, and so this is the effort need to be done by the airline. For the TPE, beyond Terminal 3, in the future, we still have a very big concourse in the air side. After we finish it, Terminal 3, maybe we will start construct the whole air satellite in the north part of the Terminal 3 in the near future.
Yeah, with the issue of direct flights, I must bring up the fact that Taiwan does not have a direct flight to India, which has the world's biggest population. Maybe it's missing an opportunity there. But Guy, when countries invest billions into new terminals and runways, as we've seen, what separates them from making a real, conceivable entity that will support the economy and that will be an aviation hub, rather than end up as perhaps a white elephant or a prestige project?
Yeah, great question, Divya. Look, I've mentioned some of them before. World-class airport with technology embedded that will streamline process between that in terms of immigration, in terms of transiting, in terms of a vibrant airport for people to spend time in there. You know, I've stayed 24 hours, for example, in Istanbul airport. Fantastic hotels inside the airside area with great shopping, basically 24 hours. Now, one element that we initially mentioned, for example, like Singapore as a fantastic destination. Singapore is always improving in terms of what offers to the visitor. You can go to Singapore several times in a year and experience a very different place. I'll just give an example. There's always projects taking place. Exciting events like the Formula One. You might remember the 6 sold-out concerts by Taylor Swift, for example, that Singapore did a deal with Taylor Swift that it will be the only place in Asia that she would be playing the Eras Tour. So what it means is that there were thousands and thousands of people flying to Singapore in March last year to attend those concerts. So it's a place that is very, very vibrant, and you can go to Singapore many, many times and not feel tired of it. So build an airport is the easiest part. I mean, it's not an easy thing to do, but it's the easiest part. How you coordinate, how you build routes like Professor Yan was saying before, how do you articulate with other airlines, how do you position EVA Air as part of the Star Alliance member? It's very, very important because there's going to be competition there from other airlines like Turkish. We've mentioned Turkish Airways before. ANA in Japan is also part of Star Alliance. So even will have to position itself as a world-class airline and have very, very good connections and routes to be able to attract people.
Right. And do you think, Guy, if you have a world-class airport with world-class facilities, does it matter, like for transit passengers, does it matter which country it's in, even if it's in certain parts of the world that perhaps are not necessarily tourist destinations?
Well, the place in itself has to be a place that people feel welcome. It's very, very important. You know, if you start doing things like you require visas, visa is a deterrent for people to go to a certain location. The more barriers you put it, the more red tape it exists. You have to facilitate, you have to open the country, you have to open the destination. You have to put yourself in the shoes of the visitor. You have to make sure that the information is clear for you to navigate the airport. You have to make sure that the people engaging with the passenger and the visitor are welcoming them. So it sounds easy to do, but it's actually very few places can do it that well.
Okay, we briefly mentioned air cargo, but I want to dig into that a little bit more. Air cargo also rebounded with close to 127 million metric tons handled in 2024. Now, here's a list of the world's top 10 busiest airports by cargo. Hong Kong's Cheklap-Kok Airport has maintained its top ranking, handling nearly 5 million metric tons of cargo. Shanghai's Pudong International Airport and Memphis in the U.S. rounded out the top three. Taiwan's Taoyuan International Airport held on to the 10th spot in the global ranking, handling just over 2 million metric tons of cargo last year. Now, Jin-ru, Taiwan's cargo handling actually outperforms its passenger numbers. So how would you say, how important is cargo if you're going to measure when it comes to determining whether an airport is truly a global aviation hub?
Okay, to Taiwan, air cargo is definitely very important. First, we have very strong IT industry in Taiwan. Even many decades ago, a lot of manufacturing moved to other countries like Vietnam or mainland China, but we still have very strong industry here. So we need air cargo service in Taoyuan International Airport. This is for the case of Taiwan. In terms of the case of other international airport, I think air cargo may be not like the number of passengers attract a lot of attention from people. But for me, air cargo is like an actual benefit to the airline or to the airport. Why? Because now the about 50 to 55% of the air cargo is carried by passenger airplanes. So if your passenger airplane reach every place of the world, and you carry a lot of passengers, you have a lot of passenger flights, why not carry air cargo on your belly? Then I think I see this as an actual benefit to the airport or to the airline.
Guy, you mentioned the changing face of passengers from China or travelers from China. We're not seeing those massive tour groups anymore. Can cargo compensate for lower volume passenger numbers? And are we seeing that happen?
You're asking what I was going to comment on, Divya. So it's very, very important because freight in many ways is what is going to make a certain flight break even in terms of the whole operation. Extremely important. And we've seen, for example, during the pandemic, Cathay Pacific managed to continue operating basically because of the ability to transport freight. I mean, there's two things that we can mention about your earlier statistics. First one is Memphis is very, very important because it's the hub of FedEx, is where FedEx manipulate all the freight and redistribute from that particular airport. The other example of a very well-coordinated freight is the Great Bay Area, and the fact that the cross-boundary flow of people and cargo being facilitated by clearance systems, which is very, very efficient in terms of customs clearance in the GBA, makes a total difference for this part of China and the world to be in the forefront of becoming a air freight hub.
Guy, I'm so glad you mentioned Memphis. I was wondering why that was in the top 10 of cargo there, as I don't normally hear about much coming from Memphis. So, Jin-ru...
Unless Elvis Presley is asking for any goods to be delivered at his old place.
Yeah.
You can remove that joke.
I think it's a good joke. Jin-ru, in facing global aviation competition, then, should Taiwan be focusing more on the infrastructure around the airports? As we mentioned before, for one thing, distance is a part of it. But, if you look at somewhere like Singapore, you've actually got a shopping mall, and Guy mentioned swimming pools. And how much thought is going into that?
I think we, unfortunately, at Taoyuan Airport, we cannot do like Changi at Singapore or the Schiphol in Holland because two reasons. The first reason is that the space of our airport is not big enough to do like Changi. They always have big surprise for the world. They are going to have like the Jewel Changi, something like that, the Butterfly Valley, something like that. This is the first reason. We don't have enough land at the airport. So we need to focus on the core business of the airport, the passenger transportation and the cargo transportation and the intermodal system. That's the first reason. The second reason is that the concept of urban development in Taiwan is not like in Singapore or in Amsterdam. For me, they don't like move the business and the recreation shopping center to the core part of the airport. The local government, they try to contain the business development and the recreational development at the city part, not the airport part. Why? Because the authority of the airport is the central government and not belonging to the local government. This may be different from the case in the US or the case in the other country. So I think it's very difficult for us to follow Singapore in this regard.
So Guy, I mean, this brings up another issue that perhaps many airports or regional airports are facing, where there are some that are privatized, some that are government funded. Is there an advantage then in that case if an airport has its government's interest or is government funded or run by the government rather than privatization, from what you've seen, the ones you've studied?
Well, there are many ways to make this work and be successful. So it's not about who is managing. I mean, of course, in the case of Singapore, in the case of the Middle East carriers and airports, the fact that the government is behind and with a very strong hand articulating all of that, it makes things possible. But we know of other places in the world, for example, in Australia, it's very commercially driven, it's privatized, but the environment is one that facilitates that relationship between airlines, airports, and tourism destinations, particularly in terms of marketing and air route development. So there's not one solution to fit all the issues. The most important thing is to have a desire, to have a vision, and to have a coordinating hand behind it to make it happen. Clearly, if the government does not want this to happen, will not happen, because things like visa is in the control of government, and if the government is putting a lot of red tape, forget about it.
Okay, so Guy, again to you then, given the amount of investment we're seeing in airports and probably regions that maybe 20, 30 years ago, we weren't seeing that kind of money go into these airports or those airports expand. Are we seeing some kind of a geographical shift into the center of gravity of where transits are taking place, rather than the traditional Western airports like Heathrow and Frankfurt, which once was the gateway to so many other countries from Asia and vice versa?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you look, for example, a lot of people still mention Schiphol Airport, in Amsterdam, in Netherlands, as a fantastic case of a great airport from the 80s, and it definitely lost its importance due to a number of reasons, including the fact that the Dutch are boycotting flying, for example, because of carbon emission. So we're seeing, for example, transiting into America becoming more and more challenging by people eventually being exposed through their social media postings, and how eventually you might have your ETA declined to arrive in the US because your mobile may be confiscated and an officer might not like what you've posted on whatever social media, on X, for example. So all those things are very dynamic, and they can shift very, very easily. Going back to the lessons that Taiwan and Taipei can have, we see how friendly, in many ways, Singapore is to deal with. I mean, some people joke about Singapore being the fine city because you can be fined by not following their regulations and rules and so forth. But in terms of you at least having access to airports and how vibrant it is as a destination, is still a textbook example.
Right, and then Jin-ru, I'm going to give you the last word here. First, your thoughts on how the whole geographical shift is happening, and then how can Taiwan compete with what we're seeing is happening in Asia? It feels like already a saturated aviation hub market.
Okay, we can do two parts. The first one, we need to expand the infrastructure as fast as possible. That's very important. And the second part, I think we need to improve our smart airport concept. Taiwan have very strong industry in IT. Some idea about the One ID, the passenger identification technique. That's not an issue for Taiwan, or even Wayfinder. That sort of to improve the experience of passengers. That's the second part. We need to do our best. Fortunately, Taiwan, we don't have the visa issue like Professor Lohmann just mentioned. TPE and Taiwan is a very friendly country, especially to foreign friends, foreign passengers. So I think if we can do the two-part we just mentioned, we have a very big opportunity to become a true aviation hub.
Yeah, I need to bring up the visa issue here before we wrap up, because the visa regime for those from the world's most populous country, India, is still very difficult to get to Taiwan. So I feel like Taiwan is, again, missing an opportunity there in getting the transit and the tourists. But that's a conversation for another day. Thank you so much, Jin-ru and Lohmann.